we're going to go on to our next question. Pat Chitwood is going to ask questions specifically of the candidates. So.
Good morning.
Hey, Pat.
Each of you will have a different question, and you'll have 1 to 2 minutes to answer. The first one is Mr. Anthony.
Okay.
Mr. Anthony, are you satisfied with Ms. Tomlinson's explanations about Midtown's finances?
If we went exclusively with the 990s, then they give us the documented information that we have available to us. There are obviously some other questions that it raises. Providing those financial documents, providing those explanations is helpful to us, but I would stay with the 990s, and the kind of content that they provide raise the concerns that I have.
So the explanations that were given, were you satisfied with those, though?
In subsequent meetings, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, the next question is for Ms. Tomlinson. How much money have you, your husband, or your foundation given to African American churches over the past 2 years, and why?
Well, of course, I pulled those records and put them on my website. I pulled them for 2010, and the question's zero. I believe I can firmly say it's zero for the past 2 years. The foundation, as you may know, is a donor-advised foundation. So we relinquish the money, and actually the community foundation determines who the money will be given to. We can make recommendations. It's taken under consideration, and an independent board determines whether or not that recommendation is justified and that they're a 501c3. They meet all the requirements under the law and the community foundation to get the charitable donation, and that it meets the objective previously stated of our particular foundation. So I don't think any religious organization has ever received a contribution from our foundation. The only reason I am equivocal at all is because I just did not check 2009. But if there was an organization, regardless of whether it was PAWS, Boy Scouts, whatever it might be, they would have to meet the criteria of our foundation, and they would have to be approved by the independent board of the community foundation. So I stand here saying that I don't think we've given any money to African American churches, and I know for a fact we have not given any money to the foundation has not given any money to African American churches in 2010.
And so neither have you or your husband privately?
Privately, I don't believe we've given any to African American churches. No. And I will say this, we go to a lot of African-American churches, of course, as part of this, and they pass the plate. It's typically I'll put in, just to be fully candid, $2 if it's a mission or homebound gift passing. If it's the main gift plate that's being passed where people put in tithes and I'm a visitor of the church, I typically put in $5. Unless I don't have change, I'll put in $10.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and the next one's for Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, you describe yourself as a citizen activist.
Yes, ma'am.
But how do you counter the perception that you are sometimes perceived as a Columbus Council gadfly?
Well, Socrates was called a gadfly, and it was a compliment to Socrates, and hopefully it's a compliment to Paul Olson, because of the pure fact that he basically enlightens the citizens of Columbus. Really, it's the mission of the news media and also the newspaper to do that. Now, when I brought out the landfill, it took the news media forever to bring out the information. They could have accessed that record, so I question their reportability. They could actually have a Pulitzer Prize for some of the things that they've done in the past here in the City Council. Spring Harbor, why they would shelter something up underneath the 501c3 Medical Center Authority. And I brought that out just recently, yet there's only been one excerpt on it, and it really hasn't delved into really the improprieties and illegalities and actually the conspiracy. Because when somebody does something illegally, more than two people, it's called a conspiracy. And when you allow two people to basically sign on behalf of the 9 members who were appointed by the City Council, and they also are in conflict with the city charter because they are also, we're talking about Dr. McMicken and Dr. Gorham, they also are supposed to be impartial. They're not. They're sitting on the board of directors of the Columbus Regional Healthcare Systems, Inc. So
the perception that
are you going to stop
if there's
the
a perception that you may be a gadfly, do you consider that a benefit then? Is that what you're saying?
I think that I would say that I enlighten the citizens more than any other individual who's ever done that. And I think that people need to know that.
Okay.
Like the community
Thank you
development
very
block
much.
grant money, if I'd finish it out, that money, 1.2 million going to TSIS, that was corporate welfare. That was not the intent of HUD. When that money of 2 million plus was coming to Columbus, it was to be earmarked to the poor, the fixed income, and the elderly.
I think you've answered
and,
the
And the
question.
thing is,
Thank
it's just
you
like
very
stealing
much. We'll
from,
call it
it's
time on
like
that.
stealing from
You-
the plate at church.
Okay, I have a final question for Mr. Baker. You're not a complete newcomer to politics, having run for a state office. But the question we have today is, what has been the biggest revelation you've gleaned from the political process, both for the running for the state office and for the mayor's office?
Okay,
What have you learned?
I was having to brace myself because I was wondering what's coming my way. But there has been a lot that I've learned just in actually personally running for office, and that there is a difference between supporting somebody else to run and actually putting yourself in that line of fire as well. The biggest revelation that I've had is the amount of patience, the amount of tough skin that you have to continue to wear. You have to layer yourself, because when the political realm is much different than trying to serve in any other capacity. Yes, it is serving the community, but when you start to put yourself up for public office, there's a lot that can be thrown your way by people who you wouldn't expect. People who have actually invested in your growth. When you run for office, if you're not on their side or padding their pockets, then you may not get that support, and they can come against you. So the biggest thing, I guess there have been many revelations I should say, and not just one.
Okay.
And that is the tough skin that's needed, and also the patience that's needed to make sure that you see your campaign through to the finish line.
Okay, thank you so much.